I feel it in my bones, even when I move.
As of today, we are only 8 days until the start of the 2020 to 2021 NBA season. For teams that went on deep playoff runs in the bubble, this will be the shortest offseason in recent memory. Then there are other teams that did not meet the requirements to enter the NBA bubble, so they haven't played meaningful, organized NBA basketball since March. During this shortened season, the NBA draft and the start of free agency happened within 2 days of each other, and during that span of time, trades were being formally agreed upon and conducted. So it feels like the makeup of teams throughout the league seemingly shifted overnight. Throughout the month of December, I will be previewing every NBA team before the first games on December 22nd, meaning I will be posting every day until the season kicks off. 30 teams in 21 days. The preseason preview series. Next team, the Denver Nuggets. Last season, the Denver Nuggets went 46-27, putting them at third in the Western Conference. They made it to the conference finals but were eliminated by the Lakers in 5. Their top performers were Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Their more interesting players are Michael Porter Jr. and Bol Bol. Last season, Jokic put up about 20 points per game, about 10 rebounds, and 7 assists on 53% from the field and 31% from 3 on 3.5 attempts per game. Now, these regular season stats weren't really indicative of what Jokic has been in the playoffs in the past and was in this past playoff run. He always kicks up his scoring a lot in the playoffs. Last postseason, he went up to 24.4 points per game on 51.9% from the field and 42.9% from 3 on 5.2 attempts per game. Yeah, Jokic is a way more aggressive scorer in the playoffs. He's a lot more passive and pass first in the regular season. So I have a question of, will he ever be more aggressive during the regular season? Will he ever average higher than 20 points per game, around 21 or 22 points per game during the regular season? Because if not, I think that will really cap him out as just being a top 10 player in the league, and that's not anything to frown about, but I'm just saying, if he were to be more aggressive in the regular season, scoring the ball and getting around 22, 23, 24 points per game, and the Nuggets were a top 2 seed, maybe Jokic would get more MVP consideration. But we know Jokic, an elite offensive talent, one of the best post-up players in the league, a great stretch big. He didn't shoot it consistently, the 3-point shot consistently in the regular season, but we've seen him step up to above 40% from 3 on a lot of attempts in the postseason. He can score on all 3 levels. He has great touch in the mid-range as well. He's an elite offensive talent. I didn't even mention his playmaking. He's the best playmaking center in the entire league, one of the best playmakers period in the entire league. But the questions for him lie on the defensive end. He's a solid low post defender because he's just a big body. He's smart and savvy, and he can knock the ball loose from time to time in the post, but his lack of defense is shown in the pick and roll defense and in space in general. That's kind of who everybody in the playoff targeted. When they weren't targeting Michael Porter Jr. on the perimeter, they were trying to get Jokic in space and attack him downhill going to the rim in pick and rolls. That's what Utah did, that's what the Clippers did as well, and that's what the Lakers did as well. And losing Jeremy Grant will kind of magnify his pick and roll defense a lot more, in my opinion. So hopefully Jokic can get a bit better at defending that. I think he will. Now that he's used to playing in his new body type, maybe he can better adjust throughout a regular season and then going into next postseason. Jamal Murray put up 18.5 points per game, about 5 assists per game on 45.5% from the field and 34.5% from 3 on 5.5 attempts per game. Similar to Jokic, Jamal Murray went to another level in the playoffs, especially against the Jazz in that crazy ass first round. But in the entire playoff run, he put up 26.5 points per game, 6.5 assists per game on 50.5% from the field and 45% from 3 on 7.2 attempts. My question is, can he continue it? Jamal Murray has been a guy who's just averaged around 16, 17, 18 points per game in the regular season. This was really his main emergence in the playoffs, where he just looked like a top 10 scorer in the entire league for an extended period of time. He's always had that potential, but he just never had that consistency. So I wonder, will that consistency translate over to the regular season? I imagine it should. Having that type of playoff run should give you all the confidence in the world to have the green light throughout the next regular season, because he was scoring on good defenders, going over and around Rudy Gobert at times, going head to head with Donovan Mitchell, who is a solid perimeter defender, going head to head with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the perimeter and shooting over those guys. He was trying to dunk on Kawhi Leonard, so I think Jamal Murray definitely has more confidence going into the next regular season, and he's definitely going to have a bit more of a green light from Mike Malone. So I think he'll definitely continue it. Maybe not 27 points per game throughout the regular season, but he'll definitely be above 20 points per game in my opinion, maybe around 22, 23, or 24. And similar to Jokic, Jamal Murray has defensive concerns. He's done a lot to really get better on the defensive end. He's gotten a lot stronger, so he's not much of a pushover on defense. I saw him compete a lot on defense in the playoffs. Hopefully he can stay motivated on that end in the regular season. Michael Porter Jr. is a very interesting player in the league. He didn't really get that much playing time in the regular season because Malone didn't really want to start him that many games because of his defensive concerns. He got a couple of starts in the playoffs, but the further they got in the playoffs, Mike Malone took him out of the starting lineup because, defensive concerns. But in the playoffs, where he got more minutes, he averaged 11.5 points per game, about 7 rebounds per game, on about 47.5% from the field and 38% from 3 on 4.7 attempts per game. It's crazy the amount of offensive potential that Michael Porter Jr. has. I mean, it's kind of unlimited. He's already a great shot creator at 6'10", so he can shoot over basically any perimeter player, and he's shown the ability to hit high degree difficulty shots, and he definitely has the confidence to take them. But his shot selection does need to improve because he can't really take those high degree shots all the time when there's chances to get better offensive looks when you have playmakers like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Same with his playmaking, that also has to improve because he's just not a great passer right now. Doesn't have the best vision, and his defense is bad. He made a lot of mental miscues in the playoffs, and that's why Mike Malone wasn't really comfortable giving him plus 25 minutes every game. The mental miscues, him getting burned on the perimeter by smaller, quicker ball handlers. But I mean, the thing is, he has potential to improve because he's 6'10", great wingspan, and he's very athletic. He might not develop into a guy who can stay in front of good ball handlers consistently, but he could definitely develop into somebody who could be disruptive, maybe on help side blocks, passing lane steals, and stuff like that. And Bol is the other interesting player on the Nuggets, mainly because of his bubble. It really showed his unicorn potential in the few games he played. He didn't really get that many minutes. He really got minutes when like half of the team in Denver just had COVID, so they couldn't really start many players, and they had to play that lineup where everybody was 6'9" and taller. Jokic was literally playing point guard. In those bubble games before the playoffs, we really saw Bol's unicorn potential. He was shooting the lights out, he was handling the ball and driving to the rim, had a crazy ass pass in the fast break, he was protecting the rim. Yeah, Bol had some unicorn potential type of games. They didn't play him in the playoffs because he was a rookie and he didn't really play that much in the regular season before the bubble. So that was the extent of Bol that we saw. But it's not all cherries and rainbows for him. There is cause for concern because of his injury history. He came into the league and didn't really play in the regular season because he had some back issues, I think that was Michael Porter Jr. I forgot what injury was hampering Bol coming into the league, but he had an injury history. That's what slid him in the draft. He has a very slim frame. He's like 7'2", but sub 220 pounds. He might not even be that, and that's really scary, especially with him playing against bruising bigs. It will kind of make it hard for him to defend against post-up bigs, like big bodies that bang down low, like Joel Embiid or Andre Drummond, Karl Anthony Towns, and it kind of makes it harder for him to rebound with big bodies like that, just because he can't really box out those guys. His future with the Nuggets, I don't really think he'll be able to play that many minutes because Jokic is like the best center in the league, so he's gonna get a lot of those minutes. Well, Jokic plays like 32 minutes per game in the regular season, so that leaves 16 minutes at center for Bol to play, and that's a good amount. Ideally, the Nuggets would want to play him a bit more to kind of unleash his potential or to test it. We'll see how the Nuggets kind of operate in terms of handling Bol going into the future, because this is the last year of his contract. He was a second round pick, so he had a 2-year contract. So we'll see how the Nuggets manage him. The offseason for the Nuggets was pretty quiet. They didn't make any trades. They drafted Zeke Naji out of Arizona with 22, and they drafted RJ Hampton, who played overseas at 24. Zeke Naji is like an energy guy who got a lot of points in the paint just due to his energy, being an active roller to the rim, an offensive rebounder. Yeah, he just got energy buckets. He had some question marks on defense. I did see that in his prospect report. And then RJ Hampton, I've heard his name for the past like 4 years, but I never took the time to really analyze his game. So, but I think he slid in value over the past year. I think he was projected to be a lottery pick going into last season. Then he slid to like the late 20s, but yeah, they took him. In terms of signings, they brought back Paul Millsap on a 1-year deal worth $10 million. They brought in JaMychal Green on a 2-year, $15 million contract, but the big one is a loss. They lost Jeremy Grant to the Pistons. Now the Pistons paid him, I think $20 million per year for 3 years. They paid him, so if the Nuggets weren't going to bring him back for that reason, I wouldn't have been like shocked or anything. That's a lot of money for Jeremy Grant, but they did match the contract. So they really wanted to bring Jeremy Grant back on that much money, but Jeremy just wanted to go to Detroit for an amplified role. Losing him is a big loss because mainly Jeremy Grant was their best like multi-positional Swiss Army knife type of defender. With Paul Millsap and Jeremy Grant both being free agents, one of them was going to leave. They weren't going to bring back both of them. And obviously the Nuggets would have preferred to bring back Jeremy Grant because he's younger and he's a bit better of a defender than Paul Millsap, just because Paul Millsap's older. But they brought back Paul Millsap because Jeremy Grant walked. So looking at the depth chart for the Nuggets at the guard positions, they have Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Monte Morris, and RJ Hampton. At the forward positions, MPJ, Paul Millsap, Will Barton, and JaMychal Green. And at the center positions, they have Jokic and Bol Bol. They lost Mason Plumlee, who was their other backup center. And their coach is Mike Malone, who proved himself as one of the best, not best, but definitely a top third coach in the league. He's coming back from a 3-1 deficit twice. That has to be a testament to your coaching and your ability to inspire the troops in the locker room, keep them focused, keep them looking at it at a game at a time, and not looking at the 3-1 deficit or looking at the 3-2 deficit, taking it a game by game. Yeah, I think Mike Malone proved that he is a top third tier coach in the league. Next season, I project the starting lineup to be Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, MPJ, Paul Millsap, and Jokic. I project the Nuggets to go 47-25. Alright, editor Ryan here. I've been flipping and flopping all over the place regarding the 2-3-4 seeding situation out west. Originally I thought the Nuggets were going to be the main contenders outside of the Lakers, then I thought the Mavs were going to be it, and now I'm coming to my senses and I think the Clippers are going to be the number 2 seed. I gotta put my Clippers bias and hate aside and realize that adding Serge Ibaka is a pretty big addition for them and is probably a better fit for them over Montrezl Harrell. So my final seeding is probably going to be Clippers 2, Mavs 3, and then Nuggets 4, and I think the Nuggets record will be 45-27. I think the loss of Jeremy Grant will be pretty big for this Denver Nuggets team, because if you look at it, their offense is not the concern for them. Jamal Murray and Jokic is one of the best offensive duos in the entire league, one of the best shooting duos, one of the best scoring duos, one of the best playmaking duos in the entire league. So offense is nowhere near the concern. And they also have MPJ, who is a proven good, great, and improving shot creator. They have a lot of shooters outside, and Paul Millsap being a stretch big. Gary Harris, you would hope he can get back to his 3-point shooting shown in his second year or third year in the league. Will Barton is one of the best instant offense type of guys, and Bol Bol has demigod potential. So offense isn't really the concern for Denver, it's defense, and they lost their main multi-positional wing forward, any position defender in Jeremy Grant, and Paul Millsap is now going to have to be that guy as their best defender on the team, and he's a year older. So that's like the main reason that I think the Denver Nuggets won't get like the 2 seed or won't really be competing for the 1 seed, just because of that Jeremy Grant loss and their defensive concerns. The direction, obviously they're contending still. Even with those defensive concerns, Their offense is so high powered and skilled and talented. I think they're definitely a threat in the Western Conference just because of that offensive firepower and their high end talent in Jokic and Jamal Murray and an improving Michael Porter Jr. The Denver Nuggets playoff run solidified them as a member of the Western Conference's elite. We knew Jokic was a top 10 player, but Jamal Murray emerged as someone with potential to be a superstar, maybe. MPJ also had numerous moments in the playoffs as someone who could be a lethal scorer. Most of the nucleus remains in Denver, but losing Jeremy Grant is a big loss since he was the team's best multi-positional defender. And with the big three being Murray, Porter Jr., and Jokic, this team needs defensive help. There's only so much that an aging Paul Millsap can do. With Murray's playoff emergence, MPJ's assumed improvement, and Jokic's superstar consistency, Denver will be deadly on the offensive end, which should carry them to a top 4 seed in the West, but their defensive shortcomings might limit them in the postseason.